Hello. Welcome to Season XV of the Horrific Podcast. We're two friends who live in different places but share a love for scary movies. In each episode, we both watch the same movie on our own and then record a conversation together about what we liked, what we hated, if we were scared, and maybe even some larger truths about why people watch horror movies in the first place. This season, we're watching movies from the 90s and talking about how they fit into the larger picture of 90s horror and how each year from that decade stacks up against the others. Thanks for joining us, and we hope you enjoy the episode. All right, we're back. Season XV, working our way through the 90s. So far, we've done 2 movies from 1990, and now we're kicking off a couple of weeks doing movies from 1991.
I'm interested to see how this year stacks up to 1990.
Yeah, I feel like 1990, we were still kind of getting our feet wet, getting a feel for it. We didn't really have to make any decisions. But after we get through our 2 movies from 1991, we're going to have to decide if 1990 or 1991 was a stronger entry in the history of horror movies.
Yeah.
And I think that'll spark some thought-provoking debate.
It should. Yeah.
So this week we're doing a movie called Dead Space from 1991. But before we get into that, I want to start off setting the scene by some other movies, some other horror movies that came out in 1991.
Yep.
Are you ready for this?
I am.
Oh, and just to clarify, these are movies that were not eligible for us to talk about because this season we're only doing movies from the 90s that were not sequels or remakes and were made on a budget of less than $100 million. So the movies that we could not talk about include The Addams Family, which really, because it was like a film adaptation of a show, Cape Fear, because it was a remake, but then Maniac Cop 2, Child's Play 3, Critters 3, Scanners 3, The Takeover, Omen 4, The Awakening, Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare, and then Silent Night, Deadly Night 5.
That was surprising.
So, a criticism that I've read a lot about the 90s that was that, you know, sort of when VCRs became widespread, then a bunch of studios just tried to like kick out some quick hits for super low budget on VHS tape, like straight to VHS, as a way to kind of make some direct money, circumvent the theater process for movies that may not have made as much, but they were going for more kind of like edgy horror franchise entries. And it's kind of interesting to me to think about, like, are we experiencing the same thing a little bit? Like, is that kind of what streaming is doing now?
Yeah. Yeah.
With all the remakes and such?
It's just cameras are better quality now. So you can have like iPhone film.
Yeah. But like, was the like 2020 or whatever it was, Netflix, Texas Chainsaw, like, did we need that? Or
right.
Were they just pandering? Because it worked. I mean, I watched the movie, but
yeah. No, that's definitely what it feels like, at least.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't realize that there were like Disney had like a complete subdivision dedicated to direct to home movies.
Oh, like for streaming specifically?
No, this was before that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Just the, direct to film, direct to DVD or whatever they call it. Like, they had a whole division for that. And that's when you would get like the, Little Mermaid 3 or, whatever, like Disney movie. So I assume that we have other that they also have subdivisions for streaming. And so, yeah, it definitely makes sense that they would do that, especially with some of the quality films you get, like with Netflix.
Right. Yeah.
That has like their logo all over it. And you're just like, I wouldn't brag about this. This is not good.
Yeah. I'm always surprised they don't take that farther. Like, have the characters like complaining about Hulu or something, but
or like written by Netflix, directed by Netflix, starring Netflix. Like that's what I feel like. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Shout out to all the people who share passwords you can't now kind of thing.
Yeah.
Netflix.
It was a golden era.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Not for me. Everyone used mine, so I was actually okay with the change. Yeah. In fact, I expedited it. One day I got tired of not being able to access my Netflix, kicked everyone out, changed the password. When people asked, you know what I said? Oh, they must have enabled the password sharing thing. They didn't. They didn't at all.
Yeah, we had to very quickly create profiles for the other people that were on ours because, man, somebody can ruin your recommendations.
Oh, God. You say that again.
Yeah. But a thing that would belong in our recommendations is the movie Dead Space from 1991. So I'm going to do a quick intro, and then you can do your fun facts, and then we will get into the Tin Pot Was a Saint details. In 1991, Concord Pictures brought us Dead Space, a low-budget science fiction horror film starring Bryan Cranston. This movie tells the story of a space adventurer and his robot sidekick who respond to a distress signal from a science lab on a nearby planet. When they go to investigate, they end up getting trapped in the middle of an experiment gone horribly wrong. I could not find any budget or box office info for this one, but it's free to stream with ads on Tubi. What did you learn about this movie?
So I think that from what I was reading, the director, Fred Gallo, supposedly didn't get the script until the first day of filming, which makes so much sense.
I would have said that too.
Mm-hmm. That was legit the only thing I read that I was like, oh, that's interesting. Yeah. I also read where it was like they did technically put it in like, a theater, Manhattan, New York, but like it was very, very limited. But I couldn't confirm that.
So I had a thought about this. Like I had a line in my notes that was super low budget, just kind of based off the intro. And then I was like, or maybe the people were just really bad at making movies.
Yeah.
Like, I think we always assume low budget, but like, I'm not the best person in the world at my job.
Mm-hmm.
So like, not everybody that makes a movie that is good at their job. Like they could have had plenty of money and they just weren't good at using it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, for sure. And, we got to think too, like we kind of talked about 2 episodes ago, but like this was like, I felt like the coming of age when it came to CGI, and I'm sure that stuff was really expensive. Think of like the Home Alone scene where they had to like hand paint the BB. It was expensive. I assume that the CGI effects that they had used were very expensive, but then again, I don't know that for sure. It just
still didn't make them good.
Just looked at, yeah.
Yeah. This was an interesting movie. I've always wanted to check it out just because of like Dead Space the game, which feels like it has some similarities, even though I can't find anything really linking the two. And by can't find anything, I mean I read the Dead Space game Wikipedia page and didn't see any references. But I think there are definitely some similarities there. And I also had read a lot of stuff talking about how this one was like a ripoff of Alien and Star Wars, which are 2 worlds I love. Well, caveat on the Star Wars, we're not going to go into that. Anyway, but I really didn't see a Star Wars influence in this. To me, this was pretty much just Alien and The Thing coming together in a much lower budget production. I
had thought Alien, The Thing, and Star Wars, but that's based off of someone who hasn't ever watched Star Wars and just assumed that's what people look like in Star Wars.
I think it was just because of the talking robot.
The dudes in the mask.
Stormtroopers.
Yeah. But the ones in this one.
You're just trying to make fun of me.
No, No, I mean, I bought it. I'm actually looking at the VHS. I bought the VHS because that's what I was told, because it has like the mistakes still in it. So like I will do the like.
Wait,
I'm gonna
what
watch
mistakes?
It. I don't know. They said something about like some dude. I don't know. I really don't. They just said always get the VHS, or if you're gonna watch Star Wars for the first time, it should be VHS so it has all the mistakes.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So in the old ones, before they went back and added the CGI effects, there are certain characters that like the continuity doesn't line up anymore.
Gotcha. Okay.
So from like the ones that came out later. So.
Okay. But so I kind of, but Alien and The Thing first and foremost, 100%.
Yeah.
They remind me of that for sure.
Yeah. And I know I said this was starring Bryan Cranston, but he really wasn't like the main character. He was kind of the main like scientist and had some plot twists around his character that mattered. But really, this was the story of Steve and Tin Pan. Commander Steve and his robot Tin Pan.
Mm-hmm. Tin Pan.
And they had some very toxic communication patterns.
Yeah.
I think they would have benefited from some couples therapy.
They definitely needed to learn. They needed to develop the tools on how to react under stressful situations.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they were just so sarcastic and condescending to one another. It was a little hard to watch, but anyway, they are these space adventurers. They found themselves in. They received a distress signal and were trying to figure out where it was coming from, and then they got into a shootout with an unknown other ships that they destroyed. Mm-hmm. But then they were injured, so they answered the distress call, and then the people said, like, oh, just kidding, it wasn't really a problem. But then they're like, well, we're stuck here because our ship's messed up. And they're like, all right, well, I guess we can just tell you everything we're doing here.
Here's all our secrets. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like, yeah. And one thing that did stand out to me as interesting about this, though, was that the whole point of what they were doing at this research station was trying to find a cure for the Delta 5 virus. And apparently there was this like super virus that was wiping out humanity, and, you know, they were willing to do anything, even dangerous things, to try and find the cure. And that, I think, probably resonates more now than it would have when this movie actually came out. Just like, if this movie had come out during the pandemic, like, could you imagine?
Oh, God. No. No.
It would have felt very culturally relevant, I think.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I feel like a lot of the story, or a lot of the like tension, was they had this experiment, and then the experiment starts mutating, and then it basically does like the alien thing from the first movie, where, you know, it's growing and getting bigger and sort of moving around the ship through the air vents. And it was just, this was a weird one. There were just so many scenes that were added to it that didn't make sense.
Yeah.
And if you could strip all that out, and it was even shorter, because this was a short movie.
Yep.
Like, there were some good moments, but there were also some really long, awkward scenes that just didn't make any sense whatsoever.
Yeah. It was hard to follow for me. I found myself getting confused frequently, and then all of a sudden you'd be like, oh, there's Bryan Cranston, or, you know, whatever the case. Yeah. It had the whole like atmosphere of like every home straight to DVD film. Mm-hmm. Like what was it, Snow Beasts? Like where everything seems like hazy.
I thought about Snow Beasts too in that ending part. Yeah.
Like everything has like that haze over it though, like where it's kind of foggy, and it's like it's a 90s thing for sure, which is why I loved it, because it's like, oh yeah, this is, how do you show it? It's, you know, sci-fi. Let's add some extra fog to this. You know, it's like post-production kind of thing.
Yeah.
The acting was definitely like 90s porn star acting for a few of them.
The most awkward sex scene I've ever seen, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I was even uncomfortable watching that. And normally that's not the case. I was like, what the hell is going on here? But
well, at least they followed it up with a jump scare, which you also love.
Yeah. It was a win-win. Yeah, it was a win-win for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting in that I feel like for a movie this short, they could have got by with doing a lot less and just doing it better. I feel like there was a lot of filler in this one. And the part where they go outside of the space station and onto the surface, and then he like starts climbing the rocks for no reason and then falls and hurts himself and goes into the cave and then comes back out, like, well, that didn't really need to happen. I feel like this movie would have been way more effective with like a small group of people that you got to know better, like through their interactions with each other. And then they were getting like picked off one by one inside the station. Like you could have done a lot more with like the mood and the feel of that. But then I also acknowledged that sort of that major, I guess, resolution scene where they were fighting the creature in the control room was real rough. So like maybe they were just looking for more ways to have the creature off camera in interesting ways, and they thought maybe like moving it outside the ship. But like it was funny because you could see the actors would like grab the props like arm and like pull it over them as if they were being captured and stuff. And it was like it was in the corner and it just couldn't move, so it would just kind of like rotate back and forth while they like hid behind a panel that was 3 or 4 feet away that it couldn't reach until all of a sudden it could. It just, the whole execution of that was really, really distractingly bad.
Yeah, that's what I think we can call like convenient horror, maybe.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Here's the thing with this movie. It hits a couple boxes for me, so I'm gonna like it regardless because it's just how I am. Okay, I'm an old man. I'm set in my ways, but it at least tried to make the monster, whatever you want to call it, like not CGI, which I think was cool.
Yeah.
Like I think that's hopefully something that's not like a lost art eventually. I don't think it will be, but like it just seems like nowadays all you need to do is like have the actor wear like a green shirt and a green pant, green set of pants, and then they can be anything, But I like the fact that they actually made it, so they get a ton of credit for that alone. Yeah. There were definitely like a few times where I was like, I definitely like looked away and missed something and didn't have the energy to just go back and figure it out. For example, when I don't remember his name, the main hero is going out with his sidekick, Tin Pot. And they're like, yeah, the suit's only going to last for like 20 minutes before it like disintegrates. But then it's just like a suit that has like 2 buttons like on the chest button, like it's skin exposed.
And he's also not wearing a mask.
Yeah, I didn't get that. Like I thought that was legit lazy, to the point where I was like, you MFers, like, come on.
Yeah.
Because if you're gonna at least ask the people who are making the monsters to make a damn mask that they can put on just to act, like it's a gas mask, so when stuff like that happens, it just frustrates the piss out of me because I'm just like, I definitely don't consider myself the smartest guy, and so it's like, if I'm catching this stuff, then you guys are just terrible. Like, I'm here just to watch something. I'm not trying to learn about science. I'm not trying to learn about space. I'm watching a movie.
Yeah.
Parasite.
So something we've talked about a lot is the idea that you don't have to be good. You just can't be distractingly bad. And that's where I feel like this movie ventured a lot, unfortunately, in that, either it was a plot hole or the visual effects didn't live up, or just the execution of the scene and the acting didn't sell it. And it was pretty like distractingly bad a lot of time.
No,
but I was just going to say the whole idea of this, though, I like the concept of it, I think was a good one. And from a horror movie perspective, the overarching plot, I can't argue with. It's just really, it was the execution was the problem for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was funny though. Like, and it could just be that he's like ultra famous now, Bryan Cranston. The only thing I've actually ever like watched him in that like I guess where I thought, wow, this is good, is because I haven't watched like Breaking Bad or any of those shows, but like when he was in Malcolm in the Middle. Yeah, Malcolm in the Middle. Like, I thought he was genius in that because he was just so freaking funny. And then also in movie with Ryan Gosling, Drive, I thought he was good in that. But like, I don't know if it's just because he's such a big name nowadays. But like, I thought anytime they went to him, he did great. Like, it was like like, oh, if I was a scout, trying to find like a high school baseball player, like that would have been one I probably would have missed just based off of like the teams playing. But you know what I mean? But that was always kind of a bright spot because I was like, oh, that's like, I feel like he's legit enough. Like, he's intense enough with some of this. Yet again, though, it could just be that his name is big where I just gave it the pass too. I'm not beyond saying that.
I think that he was also the only character with any amount of character development.
That's a good point.
Because like you find out that he's the scientist, and the whole time he's the one that's really arguing for letting the experiment continue and letting the creature continue to mutate, because he thinks there may be some chance that they learn something from it that can stop the virus. And then later you find out that really he has the virus, and that's why he's so personally invested in it. But then he also is the one who has like the breakthrough idea that his blood might damage the creature. And then, basically they say he's too weak to donate it, but he insists and sacrifices himself so that they can try to shoot the creature and save everybody. So he's like, I feel like the only character that had any amount of story arc other than maybe the monster.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely accurate.
So I guess he was a good choice. Like, if you had to choose which role to put your only good actor in, they did all right. Yeah.
Yeah, they needed it.
Did you have any favorite scenes in this one?
No. I don't think I had anything that stood out a ton, but I'm going to let you go first and look over my notes real quick.
All right. Well, I got one good and one bad. Well, there were a lot of bad, but I feel like these are the two ends of the spectrum. The first one was when they're out like on the planet and Jill is out there to try and rescue him, and the monster runs away into that air vent, and she's like shooting into it, and then it comes back out and like bites her neck and pulls her down in. That was a scene that was a lot more like brutal and intense than most of what had happened so far. And it took me a little bit by surprise, but I thought it was also nice that they kind of like were willing to kill off like the love interest. Like, that felt like not like more like a horror thing, not a Hollywood thing, where they were kind of setting up like her and Captain Steve or Commander Steve, to be like living happily ever after or whatever. And then when she got, well, maybe not. Maybe they were setting up the other girl. I got so confused about the characters in this because I'm pretty sure there were a couple of scenes where they called the characters by the wrong name.
Yeah.
Either that or I just took the notes super wrong. But anyway, yeah. But she was running out there basically taking his side, and then she gets killed, which is not what I was expecting. And then the other end of the spectrum was closer towards the end when the monster knocks the guy's head off.
Yeah.
And it's just like, clearly the mannequin head.
Yeah.
I laughed at that one. It was so funny to me.
Yeah. It's funny you say that because in the notes I said, I guess final monster scene with the head ripping the mannequin head off, or with the monster ripping the mannequin head off? Question mark. Because it was like, I guess if I have to pick one, that's what I'm going to pick.
Yeah.
But it was the same. It was just like, oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah. And so I guess in the grand scheme of things, this one probably fell into like a lot of what I think that criticism of like early 90s horror was, in that it felt cheap and derivative and not like fresh and innovative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, I totally believe that this could have been a direct to VHS, because it was clear, like, it didn't feel like anybody was investing in this as a thing that they wanted to, I don't know, turn into like a real big success or anything.
Yeah.
Maybe felt a little bit more like cashing in.
I think that they were like, yeah, 100%. I think they were like, we can make a little bit of money off this. And that's it. That's all we got.
Yeah. And, you know, like, we'll make just more than the shoestring budget that we put into it.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I don't hate the idea of it. And just the general idea of the story. So yeah, outside of, I think, from what I've read about the video game, it must have been influenced by this at least a little bit. I don't really feel like this one had a big cultural impact. And I think that the reason for that is because, well, I guess not very many people saw it, but also it feels like it didn't really break a lot of new ground, and it was just kind of doing stuff that other successful movies had done at the time. And so with that being like in mind as a criticism or a thing that was going around in the early 90s, like, I have to think that the same was probably true of Silent Night, Deadly Night 5.
Yeah.
Or Omen 4, The Awakening. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
yeah.
Those titles just sort of imply we're cashing in, not innovating. And that kind of sucks. Because, like, the whole point of this season is to find horror movies from the 90s that maybe haven't gotten their due, or that were doing something creative and interesting at a time when a lot of them weren't. Mm-hmm. So I was a little disappointed with this one. I would love to see a remake of it. Like, if it got some budget and they did it right and actually, you know, made it a little bit more, I guess, like, moody and dark and, I don't know, like, anxious. Mm-hmm. I could see it being really good. It just feels like an opportunity missed.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder if, like, they would struggle too much with the similarities between, like, Alien and The Thing to make it. I don't know.
Yeah, like would they give into the same thing where it's like, oh, it's just easier to use these tricks that we know work? Yeah. Like even like their knockoff version of the exploding chest thing, you know, it's like, man,
yeah,
you know,
yeah, it's oh well, I mean, part of me definitely gets frustrated with movies like this when they're where I feel like it's kind of blatant copies, but at the same time, yet again, I'm not saying I wouldn't do it. Money's money.
Yeah. Word.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't feel like this was particularly the strongest entry, and now I'm a little worried about 1991 because next week we got to talk about like the movies that we watched for it and how that fits, and I think 1990 is probably a little bit in the lead right now.
Yeah, I mean, listen, 91 may not have been the best year of the 90s, but this was still a fun watch.
Yeah, and at least it was fairly short.
Yeah, it's up there with like Snow Beast as far as like, okay, well, this is fun. I'm glad it's over with now, but
Yeah.
You know?
This one feels like it should be like the campy horror movie on in the background of another horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. And maybe it is, and from now on, if we see that, we'll know that that's what it is. Yeah. So there you go. But yeah, I think we've stretched this one about as thin as we can get it.
We went half the length of the movie, so
yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah,
that's a bad reflection on us, really.
Yeah, we should wrap this up 15 minutes ago.
Yeah, ooh, our bad. Yeah. But yeah, with that, I guess we're just going to check out of here and go home.
Yeah.
Say, this is my home.
This is my home. You rat bastard. Is that what they say too?
Oh, no, I just remember him saying, like him getting randomly dramatic at the end. Oh, this is my home.
This is my home. Yeah.
Like, I don't know if he's talking about space. I don't know if he's talking about the ship.
It's like quite literally none of this is your home, my man.
Yeah. Yeah, like maybe he's in love with Tin Pot. You never know.
Couldn't be any further from unless you and Tin Pot developed a relationship and now that is quite literally where you all live only, then that is your home.
And that's it for today's episode. If you've listened this far, then thank you, and we hope you've enjoyed it. We're always looking for new ideas, so if you have any questions, comments, or movie suggestions, please send us an email at thehorrificpod@gmail.com or hit us up on the IG. That's what the kids call Instagram. Just search for The Horrific Podcast. Thanks for listening. And hang on, because I want to fact check this, and I used my Wikipedia tab that I had the movie pulled up on to look up the video game, and did not reopen the original tab. Sorry, I shouldn't have done real loud like an idiot.
It's okay.
More editing time, which is the least fun part of all of this. Because I'm an idiot.
No.